You're listening to the Millennial Minute Podcast, giving this generation what they want to hear.
What is up, guys? You're listening to a brand spanking new episode of the Millennial Minute. Let's go around and introduce everybody real quick since we got a full house. We got our boy Speaks.
Hey.
We got our girl T.
Hello.
We got our other boy Chibs.
Got our boy Rod. Oh,
Hey.
hey, reverse card.
Reverse Uno. And we got our boy Leaf.
Hey.
Hey, what are we, Fonzie? Hey. Hey. And we also got our other boys over at Productive Culture. If you're looking for production, mixing, sound design, or just looking to start your own podcast, Productive Culture is where y'all need to head over ASAP. They've hooked us up and they've helped us take our podcast to the next level, and they can do the same for you guys. So stop sleeping if you're thinking about starting a podcast or you've already started. So if you're going to start your rap career or it's time to take your pod to the next level, you can hit up Productive Culture at productiveculture.com/podcast, and you can find them on Instagram at Productive Culture. So once again, that's productiveculture.com/podcast, or you can find them on Instagram at Productive Culture. Let them know the Millennial Minute Boys plus Girl sent you, and they will hook you up. And in the spirit of also supporting more small businesses and Black-owned businesses, we got to give a shout out to our boys over at 3-Bit Games. For those who are into video games, comic books, 3-Bit Games is the spot you need to hit up. They buy, they sell, they trade all games, consoles, Funko Pops, comics, figures, and trading cards. It's a one-stop shop for all your gaming and collecting needs. They are reopened and ready for business as long as you are wearing your mask, people, at 1600 East Hole Avenue, Space K24 in Pomona. Wear those masks. Or if you don't want to wear masks, you can find them on Instagram at 3-Bit Games. Shoot them a DM. Get some questions answered. So shout out to 3-Bit Games. Let them know the Millennial Minute sent you, and you are going to get hooked up. Whew. Whew. Ric Flair, woo. So today's topic is going to be the topic of misinformation. In this digital age that we are currently living in, we have a lot of issues with misinformation being spread. We have Russia, we have Ukraine, we have China. Everybody's interfering with us. There's all these different things. We don't know what's right, what's wrong. Is Facebook good? Is Facebook bad? Rod was saying Kamala Harris was a cop. She wasn't a literal cop, people. You know what I was trying to say on that last episode. District Attorney, Senator Kamala Harris.
All the same thing.
Not a literal cop. Let me clear that up for the people that are listening this week that are probably going to cancel me and get upset while T is trying on Speaks is trying on tiny hats and masks. So misinformation. Alif, I want you to touch a little bit on it. I know this is something that you've really been studying and, you've been looking at in depth. So give us just a brief synopsis and what our minute conversation is going to be about in misinformation, especially since we're into a very intense election cycle.
All right, guys. So I was reading an academic journal, and this academic journal covered different types of misinformation. I'm just going to go through them briefly. The first one being unintentionally spread misinformation, intentionally spread misinformation, urban legends, fake news, unverified information,
Fake
and
news
rumors.
is its own category.
Yeah.
Fake news.
Yeah. So, but then I was speaking, I guess I wanted to talk more about unintentionally spread misinformation, because we know that there's intentional misinformation that's designed to be that.
That's not disinformation. I know people get that interchanged, like misinformation, disinformation. But disinformation is intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But just a quick definition of unintentional misinformation. It is some misinformation is unintentional to deceive its recipients. Regular and benign users may contribute to propagation merely due to their trust of informational sources, such as their friends, family, colleagues, or influential users in the social network. Instead of wanting to deceive, They usually try to inform their social network of friends of a certain issue or situation. An example is the widespread misinformation of Ebola.
All right, class
Okay.
dismissed.
Yes, class dismissed.
Dang.
Professor Alif, thank you for
Professor
giving us
Finesser.
that breakdown and that definition of misinformation, fake news, all these different categories. So what's going to be our question for the minute, Professor Alif?
Professor Alam.
I guess like how my question is how we kind of propagate misinformation from the sources that we trust. And I think it's like a lot of confirmation biases,
Okay.
and like
Look,
how
I just get-
what we can do to mitigate it. I don't know.
I get all my information from QAnon, so I think I'm good.
I am on the QAnon message boards and can confirm this is all correct. Okay, so T, take us into the minute.
All right, so we're going to have 1 whole minute to give our answer to that. Ready? We'll go Speaks. Same order we did as last time. Speaks, Alif, Shibs, and then Rod and me. Ready? And go.
I wouldn't know because I get all my information from Wikipedia. So it's never wrong.
Facts.
I would say just don't take anything for face value.
Okay.
Chips.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not a tweeter or a reposter or anything like that, so I don't think I really spread it. But yeah, just be wary of what you read. Make sure you check your sources.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with Chibs. I think reread everything twice and check multiple sources.
Thrice.
Yeah, same.
What?
I mean, there's only just double check.
How much time we have left?
10 seconds.
You know what? I'm gonna reverse. I'm gonna say spread everything. Don't trust anything you read. Everything's correct. Doesn't matter.
Spread it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Spread it like the Rona.
Spread it like it like Corona. Don't wear a mask when you're spreading misinformation.
Hey. You can't
Okay,
mask
so-
misinformation. You can just accept it.
Yes. So I kind of wanted to start off. What's some misinformation that you guys have heard or a story that you've read that you're just like, you know what, this is complete BS and like 100% not true? Leaf.
Like I don't have a specific example that's on my mind. Like you can't put me on the spot like that, shit. But but like I guess I was just like thinking about like, for example, like like election going on, like, and then you'll hear like some crazy shit about like, oh, Trump or Biden did this, and then you'll see like an article about it, and and then you'll see like you just read the headline, and then you'll see like people like reposting that on their stories or sharing that, and I think like that's how one way of spreading misinformation.
That is true.
Well,
And go ahead.
I'd say like another big common one is like when people kept saying kids are immune to COVID. I think that's a big misinformation campaign.
Mm-hmm.
When someone goes on stage, and maybe just happens to get, the coronavirus, and then there's some might get the coronavirus, but then they just say, kids are immune. Look at him, he's great, he's strong, so we'll take there for only a day, and then look at him now. So
he's gonna be cured in 10 minutes. 10 minutes is gone.
To COVID-19. Just as an FYI, folks.
Yes.
Guys, there's no need to fear the coronavirus. The doctors are telling me that I beat Corona way faster than anybody else. It was unlike anything they'd ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
I had the best immunity system of all Americans.
Exactly. All I do is eat McDonald's and Burger King, and it's absolutely fine. There's no way I'll die of a heart attack in 3 years. It's totally okay.
Dude, he might not. Man, you notice how automatically once Trump got COVID, the cure came out. As soon as it happened, we found a new cure automatically. But on the COVID subject, I don't know. I'm pretty sure nobody listening to this or nobody on this podcast probably watches Fox News religiously. But there was a lot of
It's a good thing you do.
was a little bit,
That's a good thing that you do then.
I do not. I get it from my family that watches Fox News, but I steer clear from
Your family
that,
religiously watches
I
Fox News?
want.
Weird.
Hey, I watch
Yes.
both low
I have-
key just to like keep an
I'll
open mind.
I'll read articles on both, but I do not sit through Fox News and
But
watch
at
it.
least
But,
to keep an open mind.
yeah, I mean, I
No,
do,
like just
of course, but I just don't
like,
watch
you gotta
it.
read both. You gotta see the differences.
Hey, black people are thugs, rapists, and criminals. You're just like, well, that's an interesting fact you got there. That's some
You're
great
not
points that you
100%
made.
wrong.
Hey, no, really. Like this is what I'm trying to talk about. Like read an article from both like news outlets and talking about the same exact thing and see and vet for yourself like the differences and like the different intricacies that each outlet has about the same topic and how they spin it differently.
So then,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, really quick. I just kind of wanted to touch on this thing because on both networks there are things that are just news where they're reporting the news, and you do have a lot of personal commentary. So you do have people like Don Lemon or on Fox News, who I'm going to speak about right now, Tucker Carlson, who they're not always reporting the news. They may report something that happened on the news, but they're giving their own opinion based on something that you may have read or talking to someone, et cetera, et cetera. So in the spread of misinformation and in the spirit of us talking about this topic, Tucker Carlson had made a statement on his TV show on October 13th. And he had said, according to a recent CDC report, almost everyone, 85%, who got the coronavirus in July was wearing a mask. And they were infected anyways. So clearly wearing a mask doesn't work the way they tell us it works, right? So he makes the statement on TV. Immediately after that, you see people on Twitter talking about how we're all sheep, that the mask doesn't protect anything, the government wants to control us, and they just kind of take this whole thing and kind of push this narrative of how like this whole COVID thing is fake. It's the plandemic, not the pandemic, and people go absolutely nuts. And one of my favorite sites to check, which to me, I wouldn't use it as a baseline as 100%, but I think it's a good it'll give you a general idea whether it's right or wrong, is PolitiFact. I don't know if any of you guys have been on that website before.
No.
Yeah.
So PolitiFact, it'll fact check things that politicians say, whether it be Trump, whether it be Biden, people on TV, etc. So PolitiFact made this statement, or they read the statement and they said that it was false and that there were various things that Tucker had stated that didn't really fall in line with what the CDC had said. So they kind of gave their own assessment and they were just like, well, you can't say that the mask didn't work because the 85% that said that they were wearing a mask were also at restaurants with people who weren't wearing masks while they were eating, etc. So they could have gotten it through there. And there was just so much that wasn't accounted for. So Tucker making that statement and freaking a bunch of people out that masks don't work was like misinformation. And it just goes to show how dangerous it could be. Or like spreading or sending an article that's like incorrect, or just finding like something on Twitter and like just shooting it out. Like I think that those are like great examples that are very dangerous, especially people who are like in higher positions that need to be, I guess, a little bit more cautious.
Yeah.
So I was checking your PolitiFact and PolitiFact's website.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. I highly suggest people to definitely keep it bookmarked.
Look into it. It's good.
Definitely keep it bookmarked. It does seem to have it in a very digestible format where just about a 4 or 5 year old could understand. It even said "liar, liar, pants on fire," just to indicate how false something is. So if you have above a third grade reading level, you should be able to understand it.
Well, in fact, you should sponsor the pod.
And you should probably sponsor
the pod. So
yes.
Speaks, Chibs, T, has there been any misinformation that you guys have read, maybe in family group chats that you see maybe your parents are getting wrong information that you're kind of like, this doesn't add up, or maybe they're making a statement to you or you're reading something where you're just kind of like, I'm not like falling for this?
I think the biggest misinformation that I've probably been seeing and just had to bite my tongue a lot of times is the whole debate on mask wearing. Basically, it's just been, and the whole coronavirus situation in general, people saying that, it's just a hoax. and that these deaths are not real, and not one of these people have even talked to a medical professional or even consulted somebody that's in the medical profession. Luckily, we do have people of sorts and like that we know, and also too just doing our own general research. You can definitely tell that wearing a mask is definitely a good cause to or good way to counteract COVID spread. It is
Yeah.
100%.
Speaking of COVID, I do think another misinformation thing I've heard is how, what was it? COVID is like not as bad as the flu, so we should like, not take it as seriously.
Yes.
That was a big one early on. Yeah.
More people have died of the flu and people aren't actually dying. One of my favorite ones is the fact that I wish I would have pulled it up. Anyways, basically people talking about the cause, like people dying of COVID aren't actually dying of COVID.
They're dying of pre-existing conditions.
They're dying of pre-existing conditions, and COVID actually had nothing to do with it, which is one of my favorite ones, because I'm like, so you mean to tell me that a respiratory disease and somebody that died due to respiratory complications there's no way, shape, or form that had anything to do with it?
It doesn't correlate,
no, man. They say no. It's just the government. They also have said that they said that, which I don't know if this is 100% true or not true. I'd have to do my own research. I've also heard that hospitals will be denied funding if they do not mark a death as a COVID death. So that's why our numbers are inflated.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't even know if that's true or not, but I have heard that information spread.
Yeah, so there was that one, and then also that coronavirus is not actually like being spread. They're just trying to keep people inside due to the current wildfires that are going on. These are people in California talking. Mm-hmm. So that's also another issue entirely. But yes, misinformation has been definitely being spread more so around the COVID case, and definitely with President Trump and what he has been saying too.
Oh, but then of course I feel like also gotta separate misinformation with disinformation, because disinformation, like we said earlier, is very intentional. And I feel that when we come to like all the Russian disinformation campaigns, that's when it comes to it. They have the very much intent to give you false information in order to influence your action. That's very much like disinformation. And another popular one, I feel like, was the mail-in vote. So, kind of like, how people keep saying like, how like mail voting is a fraud. But that's not misinformation. You're not like, oh, I just put it out there by mistake. No, you're straight up like telling lies in order for to lie to people to get a certain intent across.
Yeah, I've heard those before. And with the misinformation, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading some articles, and basically the misinformation that I've been seeing, it's like they're targeting Facebook and different social media platforms, correct? And they're like spreading this information on like group threads that may be like pro or like against some type of topic. So if you're pro-Trump, then you're seeing more things that may be pro-Trump. And if you're against Trump, you may be seeing information that's like kind of against it. Or
social media always worked like that. It basically will show you what you look at the most and what you engage with the most.
Yeah, kind of like the algorithm works.
Yeah, but even I was seeing like people were saying bots like on Twitter that would go into like Black Lives Matter support groups and be like, oh, all hail Trump, white supremacy 2020. And it might be like some random computer from Russia, like typing these things to like stir people up and like sending all this misinformation. I've seen like incidents of that and like seen people like write about it and talk about it. One thing that I do think helps with a lot of misinformation and spread of misinformation is local news and like local news outlets and sources, because that's where bigger news platforms like Fox News and CNN, they pull their news from. Do you see what I'm saying? So like if there was no spot for CNN, MSNBC, Fox News to pull from the local news, like if local news just no longer existed, could you imagine like the wild west that we would have of like information being spread and like where those sources would try and pull from?
Yeah, the way I like to mitigate like misinformation is like you guys should try watching like international news, like how other countries have to say about like what's going on in America, like, and because they provided like interesting perspective.
Oh,
You might
Outlets,
got
like,
time for that. Well, I don't at least.
Yeah.
now when you say
I mean,
no,
like
like,
I mean, it's a good point though.
I don't mean like watching, but like follow them, like follow like I don't know, Al Jazeera's like Instagram page. They share some
I'm about to
stuff.
watch Telemundo. No, I don't know any Spanish, but I gotta get the news somehow.
Oh, they got captions, so they got captions and stuff. So like, no, I think like other news stations like outside the country, like they provide like interesting perspectives on what's going on in America and us and our political situation and all that stuff.
Do you think that part of this Oh, sorry. Go continue, Leaf. My bad.
Oh, I was gonna say, I just gonna end with like, I feel like it kind of mitigates that. Like, it probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. London, Boris Johnson doing some wild shit out there too. So,
It's kind of crazy everywhere. But do you think that we're more susceptible and more prone to believing and reading misinformation or disinformation because we're so separated? And like we live in this time that's so divisive, where like Trump has been divisive to the American people, where it's like he's actually himself like pushing for people to say that mail-in voting is a fraud. Like, to me, that's insane for like a president to actually like do that. So due to him and like his divisiveness, do you think that that's what's causing people to be like so far on one end or so far on another end, where it's like we can't find any middle ground of like common sense?
I think it's like, I think that kind of leads to like the whole talk about confirmation biases. Like people who like really like him or like will just eat up anything that he says and just like run with it, you know. And that's how you get even more divisive. Yeah, and like people who don't like him at all, well, like well, even if it was a fact that the president was saying, even if the president was saying facts, people who don't agree with him will say it's like, nah, that's still bullshit, bro.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel like that's oh, go Chips.
Yeah, that's the life of being like partisan. But yeah, definitely us being so divisive has definitely made us weaker as a nation, just because literally the Russian campaign was like the perfect example, because they didn't really do much. It wasn't like they didn't like hack into like the voting system to delete votes or change votes or like do like fake commercials. What they did, they went to Facebook and they made fake groups to say just like we're doing like a MAGA rally, and the people will come, and then they'll just say like really like, and to do the opposite for the liberals too. They'd be like, oh, we're doing like a Black Lives Matter rally, or doing like a BLM like group thread on Facebook. They go on both sides, and they'll like stir up like bad anonymity against the other group, and that's how like a lot of the misinformation got swayed.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. But does that say more about like foreign?
Oh, T just took a pee break.
Yeah.
She didn't say nothing. She just disappeared.
Check the chat.
She actually did, sir.
So do you guys think that speaks more to the power of international countries over us, or the, I guess, weakness of the American people to kind of fall for this? Because we are self-proclaimed the United States of America, supposed to be united. We're supposed to come together in these times of, you know, just madness and chaos, and we're kind of pulling apart and separating, where I feel like right now we should be as strong as ever and trying to stick together against these like foreign threats. So what do you guys think? Is it our fault? Is it like, okay, we're just being stupid, or are these other countries like, are they turning up on us?
It's 100%. It's a mixture. It's our fault because we're which is really weird. I feel like people are starting to pursue more like trying to pursue more higher education and things of that nature, especially in this current time because of just how competitive the job market is, which is really funny how like one of the biggest things when you enter like a higher education is making sure you check the right sources. Yet somehow, some way, we're all willing to just take things at face value. So I think it does say a little bit about us and our laziness, but also too, there's no reason why like foreign power should be able to hack into really anything right now with as much money as being donated to our military and things of that nature to help us fight off against national like attacks or whatever from other countries.
But the thing is, they're not being hacked. They're going to like Facebook. And they're doing like an influence like campaign, not so much.
It
like
should still. I feel as
Russian
though they
influencers.
should still be able to tell like the difference, though. Like,
Right.
They should be able to tell that, and we have enough. We've been devoting enough resources for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. So, Chibs, what do you think? Is it our fault, or is some of the blame on these countries kind of meddling in these things?
Honestly, it's both, but the fact is that like they're just exposing a weakness that's very public. You know, like it's so easy. That's why they do it. You know, like I said before, it didn't take much. All they did was make a couple of Facebook pages and a few ads, and that was enough to like throw. That was enough to throw Trump the election. I mean, like that stuff like that really matters. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was low cost, very effective, and they're doing it again right now. So I mean, like that's what Speak said. We gotta learn how to catch this because we're not going to stop. Why would they stop something that works? So it's going to be up to us to be able to catch it while we can. I mean, there's not much we can do to stop them from doing it. You know, I mean, a lot of people like, oh, we gotta Facebook is gotta stop this. You know, Facebook's just like. Well, why don't y'all just figure it out? You know. So I mean, they're trying their best too, but at the same time, it's we gotta be smarter.
Mm-hmm.
We do. We have to be smarter, and we have to be able to just look things up, especially with our current president. It's just like it's crazy to me how like a president is able to call out certain news outlets and say they're just fake news, and it actually be taken as fact. Like
fake news, CNN, fake news.
Yeah, it's actually insane. When all it is just like it's criticism of the president. Like you didn't see Obama going to Fox News saying that they're just fake news or anything else like that.
That could not fly. Obama could not talk back to anybody.
No, 100%. They killed my man for wearing a beige suit, bro. I will never.
Oh my God, the beige suit.
I will never, ever. I will never let America live that down. Y'all slaughtered a president because he had drip. Like y'all slaughtered a president because he had some drip. Yeah. Slight drip caused this. How dare he wear a beige suit? Anyways, we're not going to.
It's not presidential.
But I will never let America live that down, bro.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy how hypocritical we could be in like the span of 4 to 8 years. How we went from wearing a beige suit not being presidential, where now we have like on record our current president saying he grabs women by the vaginas.
He said that if his daughter was not his daughter, that he would date her, bro.
He said some just wild, wacky.
Bro.
Gross.
Like what? What president? Like what president has used the term? What president has used the term "shithole countries" and bitches in the same term?
What president has called out a vice president's son, or what president has called out or called a vice president's son a crackhead during a presidential debate? And it's not verbatim. He didn't say crackhead, but he alluded and talked about Biden's son being
having drug problems.
Having drug problems.
Hey, did he roast his dead son too? I'm questioning.
He was like, I don't know about that one, but I know about Bo.
I wouldn't doubt it, but I don't think he did.
This is also not misinformation, just so we're continuing to show examples of like why things need to be checked. But he also basically called the troops stupid, basically, right?
Or suckers, yeah.
Yeah, he said suckers, and he said something along the lines of like, "Oh, I like mine that don't get caught," or he's like, he respects troops that don't get. He said something along those lines. I don't know exactly what he said, but he said something that wasn't good. But that's not a surprise. That's not a shock that
Yes,
Trump
but the like
puts his foot in his mouth.
he's
and says
offended so
something
many
stupid.
people to the point where at this point it's just not even worth.
Well, dude, John McCain didn't want him at his funeral. That's
Yeah. Think about how petty that is. I'm already dead, and I don't want you pulling up. I don't even know that you're there.
Number one was
Yeah.
Trump better not be there. Number two, my kids will get this much money. Like,
Yeah.
John McCain is your prime example of like Republican, and he said, "I don't want the president
Yeah,
at my
and,
funeral."
and he also insulted Ted Cruz's wife. Like this dude, it's
Knows
nuts.
no
But
bounds.
I don't. Yeah, he knows no bounds. I don't want to get too much into like another Trump discussion since we're discussing misinformation. But Speaks, I do agree that having a president say this many things or have an attack on American media that may just be critical of him and calling them fake news is dangerous because his supporters are automatically going to believe that that's fake news.
Exactly.
So
Getting
kind of touching.
Getting more and more to a dictatorship every day.
Yeah, a little closer every day. But
That's so crazy. Like how we, like, both sides think that we're getting closer and closer to a dictatorship every day, but it's like different reasons. Like I talked to my Republican conservative friends, they think like socialism is gonna lead to a dictatorship one day. Or
they're gonna
socialist
tax me.
concept. Like they, folks believe that, right? And then people who don't like Trump, like also think that Trump is gonna become a dictator one day or something like that. It's so extreme. Like we all think we're gonna some sort of dictatorship is gonna come to America, but like it's on opposite sides. It's fucking mind-boggling.
It speaks to the separation that we have currently as a country, but it also speaks to what Alif had mentioned earlier, was talking about our own confirmed biases and things that we may see on Twitter, things that we may see on the news, and we are quick to share a lot of these things. And I think that that's
without
maybe
looking into it.
Yeah, exactly. That's maybe how some of us, most of us, and especially people listening may be guilty of doing this. You may just see one headline on Twitter, copy, paste it to the group chat. Can you believe this? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, we don't even know the whole backstory. We're just kind of reading a headline. So passing it over to T, has that ever happened to you? Have you ever just seen anything on Twitter or on Instagram that you're just like, you know what, this like is not okay? You maybe haven't read it all the way through. You share it with some friends. Has that ever happened?
You share on your story.
Have your friends? Yeah, have your friends ever done that to you before, and you've looked into it and been like, "Oh, you're wrong."
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, especially with
Wrong.
the Corona stuff.
Wrong.
I've had a lot of friends be like, "It's fake. It's all fake." It's all political.
What's fake?
Just coronavirus.
Oh, the pandemic. It's planned.
Like, how is it planned all over the world, but somehow it's just U.S. political? That ain't adding up to me.
Mm-hmm. 1 + 1 = 21 to a lot of people,
21.
especially.
It ain't adding up.
So have
1
you?
+ 1 = 11.
1 + 1 is 11. So T, have you ever spread misinformation and had to like backtrack it? And be like,
I mean, I'm sure I have. Nobody's ever come to me and say, "Hey, that's not right."
that horoscope you told us was a lie, T. Horoscopes are misinformation.
I don't talk about politics too much on my social media just because I don't know. It's not part of like my brand, that I'm trying to build. So I don't really go into politics that much because that's not really what I want to be seen as. But if it is something that's really big and controversial, obviously like Black Lives Matter, I will post about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when posting about Black Lives Matter, I do think that it is important because you do see a lot of people, especially in these presidential debates, that label Black Lives Matter as a hate group. Where do you guys think that comes from? Like
people being racist? I don't know.
Okay, people being racist.
Speaking of misinformation, a lot of people like to use that as saying how the BLM are like murderers or just a bunch of like looters. Mm-hmm. That's all they're doing, Black Lives Matter is just a bunch of like rioters and looters, and all the issues is their fault,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaks, do you have any idea where this Black Lives Matter hate group rhetoric stems? Have you read any articles about it, what people are saying, why they're even saying these things?
I think it's a lot of it has just been based off of what certain news outlets are pushing and what that narrative is, because a lot of people, you know what, I think it's funny because like I feel the older generation always tells us people like millennials, Gen Z, and people, why aren't you guys reading the news? Don't you guys look at the news? And yet we're getting our news from just different sources. And those sources are usually tend to be painting a more accurate picture, I feel. But I mean, that could also just be my own personal bias too. But that's why it's important for you to do your own research and, you know, put the pieces together and see what makes the most sense. Because I think with no matter which news outlet you're listening to, you're never going to get the full 100% story. And I think it's designed that way to keep you in the dark, keep you pushing a narrative, whatever narrative it is that you feel most aligns with you. The reason why the whole Black Lives Matter movement is getting towards, you know, getting so much hate is because, for one, people are misinformed, and two, it's their own racial bias.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't think you can't possibly have any type of reason to hate on a movement where they just want one group, mainly other people of color, but one group to just be seen not a better than anybody else, but just on the same playing field. I think that says a lot more about your character.
Do you think there's like misinformation that's spread within that community as well, or within that movement?
Amongst the Black Lives Matter community?
Yeah.
I think that it's maybe not necessarily a misspread of information. I think that's more so on the other side of racism, where it's somebody has such a disdain, hatred towards another group that a lot of times their emotions get in the way of their better judgment, and they themselves cannot tell when they are actually being just as bad as their oppressors, if not more so.
Yeah, so I would kind of agree with that. I think that when you were speaking on misinformation, I do think that it kind of goes on both sides. I don't think that either side is perfect. Maybe one side does it more than another side. But at the end of the day, if you are part of an organization, if you're trying to, you know, be on Fox News or CNN, you're definitely going to try and push your narrative, you know, and we definitely see that a lot in social media. So Fox News, if there is a Black Lives Matter protest, you know, when there was all of those, you know, the looting, and you had the looting mixed in with the protests, Fox News zoned in on this one ex-police chief. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the story, but his name was David Dorn. Are you guys familiar with him?
David Dorn?
David Dorn, D-O-R-N.
No.
But he was, I guess he had went to a mall to protect it. I don't know the full story, but he had died. Someone had like put it on live stream. And Fox News pretty much obtained that video and was blasting it, talking about how Black Lives Matter is violent and how it's like not okay what they're doing and yada, yada, yada. And they used David Dorn as kind of like the token for them to push this narrative on how like violent Black America was being towards Black Americans, and why Black Lives Matter no longer mattered because they killed one Black guy like in this crossfire with the situation that, you know, it was unfortunate. It was bad. You know, whereas CNN is going to attain a lot of images that are going to push their narrative of like how violent the police are and those things. So it's like both sides are still speaking somewhat of a truth, but it's not 100% accurate, if you see what I'm saying, right? Like not everything that's like on a Sean King profile is going to be accurate to like what's really going on in the streets. Like there's two. My dad, he always told me there's three sides to every story. There's his side, there's her side, and there's the truth, you know? And we get so caught up in this bias and we want to push this. So if we're pro Black Lives Matter, then everything that we do is good. There's nothing bad. And if we're anti Black Lives Matter, everything that they do is bad and everything is bad, you know? But there's a middle zone that I feel like we as Americans miss 99.9% of the time, to like call out when there's wrong, but also champion when there's right. And I think that the day we start doing that across the board, not only for progressives, not only for conservatives, like, but for everybody, just the American people, is the day that we're going to be able to like slow our roll and just like calm down and just take things for what they're worth. So, I mean, those are my closing thoughts.
Reverend Johnson.
Yes. Reverend. Someone built me the church. My third eye is exploding right now.
Yes.
My third eye, my horoscope is off the charts. But do any of you guys have any final comments? We'll go T, we'll go Chibs, we'll go Speaks, and then we'll end it with a leaf. So T.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say I like what you said last. There's one side, the other side, there's the truth. So if something sound a little bit sketch, maybe do a little bit more research on it. That way you're not, especially if you're constantly spreading information on politics and you're not so sure about it, then yeah, you should double check,
Okay. Chibs?
Just I want to say doubt everything. It's gonna make it sound like you're a conspiracy theorist, but yeah, just take whenever you see any type of shocking revelation, take it with a grain of salt. Definitely do read it. Don't just retweet a headline, and always check for sources. Make sure that the people don't just say it's from I don't know, like a blogger. Sometimes it's just a staff writer. For something from some obscure news outlet that you never heard of, but it's just what you wanted to hear. So then you're spreading it out. So always just kind of check your sources, be careful, and then be responsible.
Okay, I like that, Chibs. Reverend Speaks. We see you got the church background going. Are you about to preach to the choir right now? Give us your final thoughts.
My final thoughts will consist of one thing and one thing only: NASCAR.
Jerome, Bo Wallace, Jerome, Michael Jordan.
Make sure you to go vote. Make sure you to make sure that your voice is heard, and make sure you and hit that comment, subscribe button on YouTube or wherever else you're watching this. And thank you guys. We really appreciate it. Shout out to the Lakers. Shout out to
Los Doyers today. Hopefully by the time you guys are listening to this, they are World Series champions.
They will be.
Go Blue, go Doyers. Alif, we know you're in Arizona, so we got to talk in the native Arizona language. So give us your final thoughts on what you think about all this news, Jean.
Arizona is not the South, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
We talking NASCAR. Let us know what you think, Jean.
Yeah, just vet everything that you read. Really think about where you get your news. Like Vice.com is not. I wouldn't consider
Miami Vice.
But you
Vice.
share World Star hip hop links to the chat. You send World Star hip hop links
to the chat to the chat. I don't post that on social media.
You're sending us World Star hip hop links about George Floyd sometimes. I'm like, bro, this is World Star hip hop, and you're getting on everybody else about the news.
Yeah, but I don't share that shit on my outlets.
Okay,
that's just as bad as sharing it to your close friends, sir.
Fair enough. But what about if I took that and I shared it? You're spreading dis and misinformation.
Okay. Well, I hope you're not, but it just pops up. It's the first thing that pops up.
I bet.
That's just a lot, actually.
Yeah. So shout out to World Star Hip Hop. Chibs, you had one final comment you wanted to make?
Nah, I was going to say World Star Hip Hop is saying that George Floyd was seen with Tupac and Biggie.
Hey, World Star Hip Hop is more accurate than Biden and Trump. I'm just kidding.
World Star Hip Hop for president, Kanye 2020, and Harambe for VP. Get Harambe to pull at 1% again, guys. Just kidding. But go out there, make your voices heard, or don't. We're not your mom and dad. We're not going to tell you what to do. But we would say that would be in the best interest of our country. We appreciate you guys listening again. We love you guys. Thank you again for the support, and peace out. Don't spread any misinformation or disinformation.
Yes.
Peace.